Hi, I'm Alex from HD Labels, and this is a full demonstration or thread up of the Afinia DLF220s digital label finisher. So what is a digital label finisher? So a digital label finisher allows you to take pre-printed rolls of continuous labeled material and then laminate them, cut them, remove the waste, slit them down to finished rolls. So this will cut any shape or size label instantly. So let's look at the parts of the finisher. Let's sort of break it up. So we have our input. This is where our printed continuous material goes. We've got our laminate, and then we also have a laminate waste rewinder. So if you've got backed laminate, you can take the backing to here. You don't have to use backed laminate. Self-wound laminates would work also. The material comes through this pressure roller. That's where the laminate and the material is put together. Through the dancer arm, this determines how much material is being let through the machine, and then up into the finisher. The finisher has the knife plotter, is the knife cutter, so that is where all the magic happens effectively. And then down to another dancer arm, which controls the output. So we have a little grip roller here where the waste is then separated up to the top. So this is where the waste will be stripped to. And the finished material will come through to this end roller. We've got a slitting section here where we can add our slitting knives. So what that allows us to do is to cut them into individual rolls. So here is an example. This is what we're going to cut. This is our continuous material roll. So you'll see these are in 4 rows. So our goal is to cut these, strip the waste, slit them into their individual rolls, and then output on the end. So yeah, let's see how we get on. So what do we need to be able to cut our labels? So we will need some small cores for the output. We will need 2 large cores for our waste, one for the waste up here, and we're actually going to use a backed laminate, so we'll have a waste on here too. We need our continuous printed roll. Before you even start, the first thing you need to do is to check your printed roll. So this is nicely wound, so it's a tight, straight roll. A lot of people fall down on this machine where maybe they print the material. On the rewinder, it doesn't rewind a very clean roll, so it's maybe moves left and right. There's space in the roll. I'll put a picture up as an example. If you start with a roll like that, you're going to have a problem. So if the roll is not central or not consistent against the back guide, it will start to weave through the machine. The key thing for this machine is to get it to run straight. So if the material runs straight and true, you will have a true and straight cut. Makes sense. So this is really important. Make sure your rolls are nice and square and tight to start with. And then the last thing you need, it's a bit Blue Peter, but a pair of scissors and some sticky tape. You will definitely need that during the process. Right, so let's get started. So the first thing we need to do is put our roll on the input. So these at the end, these little knobs, loosen them off and it will shrink the core and allow you to slide on your label material. So once on and at the back, just tighten those up, and this now is gripped by the machine. So what we're looking to do now is thread our material up to the pressure roller, and ideally, if you can see this, we try and keep our material flat, and then once it's flat, this little lever here allows the pressure roller to come down and grip the material. So now we have a solid piece of material going into there. The next step is to add the laminate. So in order to do the laminate, first of all we need our waste. So we'll pop our waste core on, tighten that up. So at the moment I haven't got anything turned on. So if I turn the machine on, see it come to life. So we can actually, using the left button up here, feed the material through manually. It's not set into auto mode yet. So we just know that's all on and tight. So the next point is add our laminate. So there are pictures as well on each section showing you the thread path for the material. So if ever there's any doubt, you forget, you pick it up pretty quickly to be honest, but just it is important that it is threaded the correct way. So now we need to attach our laminate. So first of all, this is fiddly, and doesn't matter how many times you do it, it never feels great. So we separate our laminate. So we've got our backing material, so I'm just going to attach the waste to the roll, and then I'm going to take our actual laminate And the goal is really to just lay this in between, kind of centrally in the material. So if I just plonk that on, it always looks terrible to start with. It will straighten itself out. So key things when it comes to laminate, your laminate always needs to be narrower than the material, or you will never, if they're the same width, you will never line them up perfectly. If you have laminate creep over the edge, you've then got a sticky surface on the top that will grip as it goes through the machine, and it will twist the material, so it will massively affect your cut. So yeah, we've got our laminate on. Our laminate is actually not quite as far to the back because I say it's slightly smaller, so we've got it central to the roll. But yeah, if we feed this through, I'll turn our laminate on. So if I just turn this here and I turn to the green lights on the base, they take these are basically the tension controls. So now both of the rolls have tension. So when I forward, you'll hear it start. Oh, I could turn this on as well. So we've got our laminate on. We've got our 3 tension controls on. So what we're able to do now, if we take our material down, if I actually turn on the finisher, where this dancer arm now lifts, it will feed material through. Come through the right side of the tensioner. So you'll see it now start to come through. And what we're aiming to do is now thread this up into the finisher. So there is a guide on the back of the finisher which has a thumb screw. One side has a thumb screw, one side actually has an Allen key to adjust. The machine should be installed, so we always set the machine up. We install all of these that we sell. We set the machine up so all of the back guides are correct. So realistically, they should never need adjusting. Even if you use narrower material, that back edge is always fixed, and that's why these have got thumb screws. So we're using 220 wide material here. If we were using 130mm wide, for example, the reason I say that is we print on an Afinia L901. That's what this was printed on. That uses a 220 wide material. We also use an Oki Pro 1050 in-house, which has 130 wide material as standard. So we tend to just switch between the two, and it's only a quick adjustment using these guides. So it's a real simple, easy switch, as long as you don't fiddle with the back guides. So we've loosened off this guide. I'm going to feed the material up through the machine, and then this little lever here lifts and raises the wheels. So the wheels are raised at the moment. Take the material through, keeping it straight, lower that down. If I bring my guide up to the edge, so it doesn't want to be squeezing the material, it's just there as to kind of convince the material to run straight. But now we've got this on, realistically, this whole part of the machine is done and sorted. We're moving through to the cut and we're ready to go. So now we need to feed up to the plotter. So if we hadn't used laminate, we could pretty much start cutting from the very first label we've got. Because we've used laminate, I'll put a picture up. You never put it on crisply to start with, so there will be a little creasing to start with, and ideally you do not want to cut through the creases because it could damage your blade. So what we want to do is try and feed the laminate, or feed the material through to the point where the laminate is nice and smooth. So I'm going to do that now. So I'm actually just going to take the material here, take hold of it, and when I lift the rollers, because this is all set to be on and automatic, I can pull the material through and I can physically see the laminate. And it looks pretty good now. So I'm going to drop that there, lower the clamps, and we are now at the point where, yeah, the material's nice and flat, so we can start doing our cut tests. So in order to do our cut tests and set up the machine, we actually need to turn the machine on, or turn the other half of the machine on. So this power switch sorts this side out. So if I now turn on the left-hand side, that turns on the plotter. So the plotter is just coming to life. And as soon as the plotter does come to life, what you need to do is, it gives you 3 options on the screen, and really option 2 is all you need. You press 2 on the top, and what that does, it checks the width of the material, so it sets the dimensions of the machine. So the machine is now on and ready to go. You can't actually run the DLF software until you get to this point, so now it's a case of running the software and setting up our cut line. Right, so this is the DLF software, so this comes with the finisher. So you have your PDF preview here. When we open a PDF, you'll see our cut lines there. These buttons allow us to move our media forward and backwards. We've got our distance between cut marks, so we need to tell the finisher when it should be expecting a black mark. So you can see our preview window at the top here. This blue window, or this blue rectangle, is our sort of the window it's scanning, the window it's searching for its black mark. So I've actually got, the software by default opens to a black mark that's 4mm. So if we choose 2mm, you'll see that actually now it goes green because it's detecting that black mark. So it either works with a 2mm or a 4mm black mark. So, and then we've got our cut pressure here. So cut force 7 is really low. That will probably cut through the thinnest of films. So, but ideally, if you're starting from scratch, always start low. The last thing you want to do is start slicing through the material because you'll potentially damage the blade, the cutting mat below. So always start low and work your way up. We've got the ability to print or cut blanks, so we can enable that, and it will take the cut line, and then the step is the gap in between. So you also have a copy mode. So the advantage of a copy mode is if you've maybe got multiple jobs on a roll and you would like the machine to stop after 400 pages of cutting, you can specify that you'd like it to stop after 400 pages of cutting. So another thing you can do, you've got open last job. So maybe you would like to carry on something you were cutting yesterday afternoon, you could click open last job and it will bring up, so we can do that. If we click open last job, this was the last thing of cutting, it was lots of tiny little circles. One advantage of this is it shows you the cut force you had previously and also the speed you were using. So if you're using the same material, the chances are you're going to need the same cut force, so it saves a bit of time testing. But what we're going to do is actually do a new job. So if I choose open PDF, I go to our desktop, I open that up. This is our design to match our pre-printed roll. So very simple rectangles I've gone for. So 2mm gap. I know that the repeat between this black mark and the next one is 100mm. So I set that to 100. If you don't know, you can literally just measure black mark to black mark, or most likely the page size you've used to print the labels, that will be the distance between black marks. So I'm actually going to cut this at 600, which is the full speed, because rectangles are pretty straightforward. Circles, we sometimes slow them down if they're really small. Just gives you a, especially if you've maybe got a border or something on the design, it gives you a slightly more consistent, more accurate cut. It's personal preference really, but we like to just make sure we get things perfect rather than for the small amount of time extra it takes. So I'm actually, just in case, I think it was a plastic, so I'm just going to lower my cut force down to 12, and then what I can do is a cut test. So if I choose cut test, it will ask me to move to the next black mark, so I say OK. I then forward the material, keeping an eye on this area here. So it shouldn't be too long, and there we go. So now we've got to the next black mark. It knows that everything's moving through the machine nicely. If I hit cut test, the machine will go and do a cut test. So the machine is now doing its cut test. I'm expecting this to have not cut through, but ideally you don't want it to cut through, or it's better than cutting through too much. So what I can do, if I do this, I can see it's there, but it's not. See that tearing? It's not really cutting right through. So if I go to the next label, I can't really. That one's just about through, but you can hear it not separating nicely. So what this tells me is my pressure isn't high enough. So I just need to go and increase the pressure and then try again. So I'm going to increase the pressure to 13, and then I'm going to do another cut test. Right, so as our material isn't pulling through yet, so that feels much better. So we have our label, but you can see the issue now is our label isn't actually central. So let's look at that. So looking at our label, the artwork effectively needs to come down slightly and to the right. So we can adjust that easily in the software. So I don't need that now, and I can talk about it here, can't I? So we have our X and Y offsets. So we think the material or the cut is it's the cut line that's moving and not the artwork. So I know I said the artwork needs to come down and right. Technically, the cut line needs to go left and up. So think about the way the label is going through the finisher, because it may well actually be you take it off and you change the orientation when you take it off. So just think about the way it's cutting and not the way it looks on the label. So I think our cut line needs to go up maybe 1 mil and probably across, I think, 3 mil. So actually maybe more like 1.5. So what I can do again is a cut test. So that's looking better, you see that, but I think we could still move the cut line left. Up and down doesn't look too bad, maybe ever so slightly more, but yeah, we're pretty much there. And it did sound a little bit crunchy when I was taking it off, so I am going to go back to 14 on the pressure. So I'm still going to go left another 1 mil, and I'm going to go up probably 0.7 of a mil. So, and I'm going to increase our cut to 14. Okay, so yeah, this is a trial and error process really. It's a lot easier once you've set the machine up and you're running the same job, or running, you've run a job previous. I've actually moved the camera and set the whole thing up from scratch today, so you wouldn't need as much adjustment as we're doing. But within really 3 or 4 labels, you should be pretty much there. So I'm just going to do my final cut test to make sure I'm happy, and that should be that. So we should now peel our label off. Yeah, I'm happy with that. So obviously if there was a border or something going on, it would be a lot trickier to line up, but this is quite a nice straightforward design. Right, so we're now happy with our cut position, our cut strength. The label is looking good. So it's a case of threading it back through the output on the system. We need to separate the waste and put our knives in, our slitting blades, and connect to the final cores. So our material has dropped down, it's under the dancer arm. So again, there's instructions on the side here. This whole side is off at the moment. We won't turn any power onto this side until we're literally fully hooked up. So we come over this top roller, under the next one, and then we are going to, so just making sure it's nice and straight still. We just would like our material to get up to this top roller here. So if I put my clamp on, I can let go of that. We need to put our core on for the waste. So just line that up, tighten it up, and then this is the point where we will separate our waste and attach to the core. So 2 materials slightly fiddly to take apart. So what I tend to do is keep the material to one side and then feed what's going to be our output down to the base. So again, just trying to keep it straight, flat. We add this. This is actually a weight as well, so we can put the weight down. What that weight does, because waste never tends to rewind as nicely as a finished label, rather to stop that from bulking up and then giving you uneven tension on the 2 rolls, the weight helps compact the waste so that it gives you a more consistent flow of material. So now this is down a base, we'll just put on our cores. Obviously these are not going to be finished yet because they won't have been slit and we're not through to any good labels. So it doesn't really matter where these go at the moment because we're only going to use them to help transport the good labels through to the end, and then we'll reattach to the cores. So I'll just put some tape on to these. It's quite key, well, especially when you're doing the finished labels, that you get consistent tension across this. So there's a small amount of play here in the roll. So what I tend to do is when I've attached the first piece of tape at the furthest end, I actually just twist it ever so slightly to the left, and you'll see that it adds some tension to the roll. So by doing that, it sort of straightens the material out and it gives me a more consistent, just do one in the middle, a more consistent tension through the machine. And now we've got these all attached, we can turn on this side, it takes up the slack, brings up the dancer arm, so as material drops down now, it will start taking material. So we don't know where to set our blades up yet because we've not got anywhere to sort of line up to, so what we need to do is kick the machine off and get some cut labels through to the output. So now we basically just click start and the finisher should kick into life. So we're cutting our first labels, the waste has been taken up. The ones where we did our test cut that weren't going through will go up on the waste. So we want to get through to the first point where we have 4 decent labels across the roll. So we should just be coming up to that now. So what I'm going to do is come back to the machine and pause the software. So I've paused the software. We can technically pause from the button on top as well, but this is the better way to do it. So now we've got our labels through, we can look at setting up our blades. So now we need to sort out our slitting blades. So the slitting blade holder has three positions. Firstly, at the top, out of the way, there's a safety underneath, so to protect your fingers. What we need to do is lower it to position number 2. So this is just above the material. So what we're able to do now is look, loosen them off, line the blades up. And then once we're happy, we just, again, loosen the slitting blade holder off, push it down right through and then clip it into the bottom position. So now the blades have pushed through the material. So if we then resume our cut, we'll see that the blades have been cutting through, that the material is being separated. So we're just going to let it get down to the bottom. So we've paused the machine, we've got our 4 separate rows, so now's the time where we're going to attach our new cores. So first thing we're going to do is separate the good labels from the sort of the waste. So then we loosen off these cores, we can take them off. So remove the waste labels, and then we'll put on our new cores. So now it's important that we do line our cores up with our labels. So what we're looking for is to have them roughly central. And once we're happy, we'll just tighten that up. We can always adjust this later if needs be. So take some tape, go in the center of our label roll, and then it's really a case of just trying to get this. The first one I think is the important one. If we get that down and straight and attached, and then with the same principle we had before, well, this has got a little bit of play, we just make sure we keep it tight when we do the final attachment. So again, just put some tape on, and then we're looking to have them parallel with each other and ideally equal tension. So I'll do the same again, I'll just take the tension on the final roll. Just make sure they're all on nicely. Right, so I'm happy with that, so I'm just going to turn this side back on, and then if I hit resume, that's it. Our labels will start to roll, they're all being slit, and that is us running. So our labels are finished, complete. See, we've got some chunky rolls, so we can cut these off, and they are ready to go. So yeah, thanks for watching. For any more information on the Afinia DLF220s, please feel free to get in touch with the HD Labels team. Thanks again.